Hi, this is Greg Smalley with Pod 366, a Weird Movies podcast. And I'm joined today for the first time, by L. Rob Hubbard. He writes for our site under the name L. Rob Hubbard, and his name is Robert Hubbard. It's so the L. Rob is not trying to confuse us with the Scientology guy. It's just a coincidence.
Or is it?
Or is it? And later today, we're going to be joined by John Michael McCarthy to talk mostly about teenage Tupelo. We might talk about the rest of his career. He'll be joining us later after L. Rob and I do the rundown of this week's movie releases, and probably give a brief introduction to the works of John Michael McCarthy. And so let's get started with the weekly releases, which I'm going to put up on the screen. Can you see those?
I can. Okay.
Those are the five we're going to discuss, but let me take them off. Whoops, I was going to take them off one by one, and I hit the wrong one. And now I can't get away from it. Where's the rest of them? First, let me start it over. Oh, here it is. This is the one I wanted to talk about first, because this is out in theaters and it's also on video on demand at the same time. This is a movie called Daliland, about Salvador Dali, especially in his waning days. I noticed it in film festivals. I think it was about 2 years ago. It's finally coming to the screen. As you can see, Ben Kingsley is starring as Salvador Dali, and Barbara Sukowa. I'm not sure how you pronounce it.
Sakura. I know I use it. Yeah. Anyhow, she's great.
Yeah.
A great actress. So
she's a great actress, and she's playing Gala, his muse, for his later years at least. And it's directed by Mary Herron. I always am terrible with pronunciations. I've never heard her name pronounced, but she did American Psycho way back in the day, which is one, for some reason, we haven't gotten to covering yet, which is a little bit of an oversight on our part.
And sort of more in line, earlier in her career, I shot Andy Warhol with about the woman who shot Andy Warhol, Valerie Salinas, I believe.
Right. So
this was completely off my radar until you mentioned it. I hadn't heard of it, and then I discovered that it was Herron's new film. And looking at the cast, so I went to the link to the trailer. It looks interesting. It's kind of like another biopic, artist biopic, kind of like in the lines of like things like Frida. Probably not that extreme style. I'm interested, although in this photo, I can't help but note that Ben Kingsley looks a lot like Baron Munchausen.
That's a good, the ruffled shirt,
and also that it takes place, I guess, during the period of his life during the 70s. I'd be curious to know if they managed to sneak in any mention of him when he was being in Jodorowsky was trying to get Dune off the ground and was courting Dali for the role of Emperor. I wonder if there's just going to be some little bit snuck in about that. Maybe not. It'd be
that
nice.
Would be cool if they did. Looking at the trailer, it looks like fairly straightforward, not weird or highly stylized. It's kind of, a lot of it seems focused on his image in those late years as kind of an aging rock star, and he has these debaucherous parties, it looks like to me.
Right. and also I guess in his younger days, but because I believe Ezra Miller plays him as young Dolly in those sequences.
And I think actually Ezra Miller's being in the movie may be one reason why it's been delayed. The release has been delayed. Waiting for that to calm down the furor over his little scandals, which aren't little scandals, but pretty big scandals.
But I'm interested. I like Heron's work so far. I'm kind of curious as to what this will be. As you said, I don't expect it to be as weird, quite as weird as others, but it's interesting.
Well, I think we're just focusing on it mainly because it's about Dali, who is certainly a huge figure, going back to Un Chien Andalou. And I think among a lot of people, his late career is very interesting, and he gets a lot of flack from cinephiles and intellectuals for his later years, for kind of he has a reputation as being a sellout, and even a collaborator with Franco's fascist regime. I don't know how much they're going to get into those criticisms, but it will be interesting to hear the take that they have on that. They might just skip it altogether. I don't know. But I'd be interested.
So it might. There may be some slight mention. I don't think that they'll get into a deep. It'll get into a deep dive, but who knows? It's my who knows? But
who knows? Indeed. All right. Well, that was our new release, and like I said, that's also going to be on VOD. But to some re-releases. Here's a most bizarre voyage into the psychosexual. It's a release of Paul Bartel's Private Parts, which is a movie, a sort of sleazy but arty little movie about a teenage runaway in a boarding house full of perverts. I think is the best way to describe it. And Paul Bartel, I think it's his first movie. He went on to do Death Race 2000, the original, and Eating Raoul. So he deals in black comedies. It's really, if you like black comedies and gritty 70s transgressive movies, I think it's a lot of fun. What do you think, El Rob?
Well, just from that description alone, I would still expect Howard Stern to be in this version. Yeah. Thankfully, he's not. Yeah, this was Bartel's first feature film. I believe he did like a short called like The Secret Cinema maybe a few years ago, a few years earlier. But this was his first feature film. Funded by Roger Corman's brother, I believe.
Yes,
Gene Corman.
Gene, yeah.
I caught this. This would be the best time to see this. Would be like late night television, when stations used, instead of showing infomercials, they would just show movies, old movies, and just little bits of weirdness like this. It is a black comedy, not quite as in the line of, say, Eating Raoul, or his later work. This is kind of pitch black, but it's fun, depending on your, I guess, definition of fun.
Got a John Waters kind of vibe to it, I think.
And it's good to see this finally get released in a decent fashion. I think this is Scream Factory.
Yeah, and it's the first time on Blu-ray, I'm fairly sure, in the US, at least.
But I remember who is it? Lucille Benson, an older actress who used to be in a lot of films, like she's the old woman in Duel, in Spielberg's Duel, host of other films. And for those of you who are old enough to follow television, the guy who was in the sitcom My Three Sons, I believe Chip Douglas so kind of has the leading man role, I guess you could call it that. And apparently he was somewhat embarrassed by the film, or at least he didn't have a good time during the shooting of it. But
well, that's too bad.
Well worth picking up. And again, so way better than the other film. This is also known as also called Private Parts. 100% less Howard Stern.
And I love the idea of people looking for a Howard Stern movie and accidentally picking this up and then being really, really shocked. See what a real shock is like. Let's move on to the next one, about which I don't have too much to say, but I think it's worth mentioning because I haven't seen any of the movies contained in this box set from Arrow. It's Giallo Essentials, the blue cover version. I think Arrow's put out about 4 of these Giallo Essential collections, and they're only distinguished by the color of their cover. So there's a yellow one, there's a black one, and
red.
one,
there's red, yellow, black, now blue, and there's a white, and there's a white box. So yeah,
and they are, they each contain 3 movies. These 3 movies are The Forbidden Photos of a Lady Under Suspicion, Death Walks on High Heels, Death Walks at Midnight, and they are all by director Luciano Ercoli, and they all feature Nieves Navarro as I think she's the leading lady in 2 of them, and she's in the other one. I'm not sure if she plays the lead. She's the lead in the 2 Death Walks movies. And she acts under a pseudonym, Susan something, I forget, but the one that seemed most interesting to me was Death Walks at Midnight, because it's described as about a model who takes LSD and has visions of a murder that happened earlier. And I like any Giallo where there's LSD involved because it lets them go crazy. Because I just love in the 60s, the contemporaneous depiction of the LSD trips were so fun. They're campy now, but at the time, I guess, they were trying to, they were cutting edge experimental films, using lots of kaleidoscope lenses and bright colors and stuff like that. So I love those. And there are a lot of people who will watch anything that's categorized as a Giallo. Do you have any thoughts, or have you seen any of them?
I'm not a big Giallo fan, although one of the local libraries here, I guess, they acquired the Arrow box sets, the red and yellow one. So I started kind of sampling those, and I'm still not a big fan of Giallo, but I will say that if you haven't really been exposed to anything besides the usual Argento, what gets mentioned, Argento fans films, if you manage to get these box sets, they're an excellent way to kind of get a good sampling what Giallo is. I think I just recently finished up the I believe they just got the black box, and and they've got the other 2 sets on order, so I'll probably be looking at those later in the year. Some of the intro, I've heard of the titles of the individual titles. I can't in this set. I've heard about the Forbidden Photos of a Lady Above Suspicion. The other 2 I'm not familiar with at all. So when it finally arrives, I'll kind of be curious to see what those are like. What was the one on the yellow set? Strip Nude for Your Killer, I believe was the English title. But that was easily like one of the sleaziest entries, Giallo entries. It's kind of, if you haven't seen it, I said go check it out because it has like one of the most unbelievable endings I've ever seen it in a film, and it certainly wouldn't pass today at all. But yeah, I'm interested when the blue box gets into my hands. And again, check any of them out, whatever color.
If you're interested in Giallo and just want an overview of it, and you have some time, my recommendation is get the all the colors of Giallo set, which is a documentary about Giallo. But one of the special features there is a collection of trailers of what is pretty complete. It's like every Giallo film ever made. The trailers just back to back with Kat Ellinger doing commentary over them and describing them. You will get, just by watching those trailers, which last about the length of a feature, you'll get a complete overview of the genre and a lot of movies to check out, including our favorite Death Laid an Egg. Giallo's always had the best titles.
Right. Oh, Death Laid an Egg is great.
It is.
I think we've covered. Yeah, you have covered it.
It's on the list. It's our surrealist. It's the only surrealist Giallo from that era. And there's some question as to whether it really is a Giallo because it was so early in the cycle, but it has the same themes. And
of course it's a Giallo, just like everything is folk horror now.
Yeah, well, there's that. So yeah, Giallo Essentials. Next one is sort of a nostalgia piece, especially for kids who grew up in the late 60s, early 70s, or maybe even early 80s. This movie came out in 1967, Mad Monster Party, for monster kids especially, which was I don't know if they have monster kids anymore. I don't think they do, but you know, in the like 50s through.
Yeah, so they're probably, I think like the youngest the monster kids are now kind of pushing their late 60s, early 70s now.
I consider myself almost a late monster kid, so I'm only in my 50s, but there weren't other monster kids around me, so. But it's a Rankin Bass animated thing, and Alfred Aker does a review of it on our site. It's really more for nostalgia than anything. It is strange by today's standards. Not something. It's not, the whole idea isn't in fashion anymore. But I did want to say, just while I'm thinking of it, last night I happened to watch Super Mario Brothers for just to catch it, because it might be for awards, animated awards next season. And I thought, that Rankin Bass style was so different back then. It's actually come to dominate now with the 3D puppets that Pixar always does. It's sort of the style of modern animation, and so they were kind of ahead of their time.
Okay, I've seen this several, like when I was younger. Again, it would like pop up on like on late night afternoon television, and like growing up with the Rankin Bass specials. I mean, like Frosty the Snowman, any of the Christmas stuff, and coming across this, it is dated, but it's quaint. You have I guess Boris Karloff and Phyllis Diller. If anybody remembers Phyllis Diller, and sort of like this pretty much this whole like gallery of the familiar monsters. You got the Frankenstein, the Mummy, the Hyde. I have not seen it on Blu-ray or DVD as of late. I understand, I guess with Umbrella they did kind of go all out, I guess, in terms of extras. I mean, it's a good nostalgia item, and for younger people to kind of check it out, like the animation style. I haven't seen Super Mario Brothers, but I think that style, kind of like that style of stop motion that they use. I know, like in like in Coraline, some of the not Pixar, like some of the Laika Portland-based company, that style of animation. Worth a look. So,
All right, now I don't know. Let me see if this one pops. Oh, it's not popping up. My last one is not popping up. I don't know why. Let me see if this will work. Can you see that, or do I need to?
I saw like a black square, but it's still on Mad Monster Party. Maybe
Let me reshare it because I don't know what happened there. But as Giles said last week, it wouldn't be a Pod 366 if I didn't have some problem sharing a still. So here we go. This is the last one. This is a movie. Oh boy, Todd Tarantula. And it's hard to say anything about this because we've only seen like the minute-long teaser trailer. It is a mystery of psychedelic proportions. It took 10 years to create, and it is a rotoscoped psychedelic mystery about a man searching for his lost motorbike. And I think that there's hinted that there's a time travel element. And that's pretty much all we know, except if you watch the trailer, which will be embedded at 366weirdmovies.com, you will see that it does indeed look strange. Did you see the trailer?
I did. I did check it out when you sent it to me, and I looked up, and I actually looked up the director who did a film a few years earlier called Loon Lake, which I have not seen, but I've heard of. The actor David Selby stars in Todd Tarantula. He's also in Loon Lake, and some viewers may remember that he was a major actor in the gothic horror soap Dark Shadows way back when. Your grandmother will know. Just ask your grandma; she'll tell you. And actually, his work, I guess, with a couple other people in the Dark Shadows cast, I also believe there's somebody else in Todd Tarantula. It looks interesting. Like I said, the rotoscope effect kind of gives it the impression that it's kind of animated or kind of a style of comic. I can't tell from the trailer if seeing it continuously, if it would be turn out to be obnoxious.
Yes.
but it was intriguing enough. There's also a link because it's streaming on Tubi.
Yeah.
I almost considered just kind of like at least checking out like 10-15 minutes of it before we started, and then I just thought, no, I don't have the time. But I am going to go back and check it out because it sounds like it's kind of a noirish mystery, and that.
And set in LA.
That can go either way, good or bad. Either way, the look is intriguing. So
that's what I think probably falls into the little subgenre they sort of call sunshine noir, where it's bright LA setting and bright lights and bright colors, but the
psychedelic sunshine noir. This tagline says a mystery of psychedelic proportions.
Right. So, I mean, yes, because it's free on Tubi, we will almost certainly, somebody will see it. So it's promising, and people can check it out very easily. And that is it for our weekly releases that we want to cover. And so we've got like 10 minutes before we're going to take a break and bring John Michael McCarthy on. But I thought that we would kind of introduce people to John Michael before he comes on, because I don't think he's definitely not as well known as he should be. I don't know how many people know about him. His movies are not very well available. His first movie was called Damn's Elvis, Daughter of Elvis, and that surprisingly, although it was a shot on video released direct to VHS movie, that surprisingly is available right now this year. I came out from a company that specializes in releasing VOD movies from the 80s and even up until the 90s, and that's Saturn's Core. And they did a pretty elaborate release of this movie, including a John Michael McCarthy commentary. So that one's well available. And then a movie called Super Starlet AD, which I think is his fourth movie, is available on DVD, probably currently. I don't know. Robert has it there.
Trauma.
There's a reason. Yeah, Trauma.
This is like a mission of
and then,
yeah, from Trauma, it got acquired by Trauma, and I guess in terms of time to do full disclosure, I actually was on the crew for Super Starlet AD. It was shot like back in 1998. It came out in 2000. So after that, I did work for him. I was a fan before that. Back in '97, I saw Sir Losers during one of what they called the Voice parties, when they were kind of touring from town to town. Saw them in Kansas City, and just kind of went, wow. I had a roommate when I lived back in San Francisco who kind of turned me on to the films of Russ Meyer, and then from there kind of got to see some of that genre. So I was like really primed for it, and kind of impressed on what they managed to accomplish. I guess on the budget that they were working with, and just circumstances aligned where I was able to go down to Memphis for like the last 2 weeks of shooting. That's a whole story in and of itself. But after that, I kind of got interested, found out that he did comics, and started searching out more of his comics work, and kind of kept an eye on throughout the years, just to see what he was up to. And it's been an interesting evolution. Like you said, he should be more well known. I think he was kind of more known in like that late 90s, early aughts period, when that whole like garage, greaser, rockabilly kind of subculture kind of came back in music and such. But then sort of not disappeared, but kind of faded slowly. It wasn't quite publicly known as it was in that time. And Super Starlet was, I guess people thought that it would kind of like lead to kind of even bigger things. He did try to get projects off the ground, which didn't, for various reasons, mainly financial. He also had a family at the time, so during this period, he had a daughter and then a son in mid-aughts, and he's still producing work, even though he's not doing features. He was doing short films. He was doing music videos, and he went back to doing music. He was in several bands before he kind of got into the comics thing with Fantagraphics in the early 90s, and then like was in a band in the mid-aughts called Fingers Like Saturn. He's kept very busy. It's just that his work was very hard. So again, was very hard to see. Super Starlet was probably like the most easiest to get because that was on Troma. Damn Elvis and Teenage Tupelo. At the time, they were both on VHS, and Damn Elvis was like really hard to find. And yeah, he's a really busy guy, and but
Books.
nobody knew his work or couldn't.
Yeah. Well, to quickly get back and establish the chronology, I think there are like 4 major pictures, and then there's a Cigarette Girl, which I haven't seen, which came after him. But he did that Damn Elvis one, and then came to Teenage Tupelo, which is the movie we're going to talk about mostly today.
Mhm.
And that was released straight to video, but it was released by Something Weird Video at the time. And he has connection with those guys. He I don't know if we'll ask him about this, but I believe he's the one who located a copy of the pornographic movie Bat Pussy, which
Yes.
then came out on Something Weird, which is known probably for being the worst pornographic movie ever made. And it's really something I don't recommend you watch.
There's a compilation that had something. I remember seeing that had like a few minutes of Bat Pussy, and it's kind of like remember going, what the? And then finding out that McCarthy had a hand in like in finding it. So we have Mike McCarthy to thank for Bat Pussy. But the story of how he found it is amazing. We'll probably get into it later, but he has a site, Gorilla Monster Films, and that's Gorilla, GUERRLLA, as in Gorilla Fighter. But like if you want to kind of get just a sample of his body of work, from art, so from comic art to the videos, the music, to the features, and just writings about pop culture in general. That's like that's just the place to start, and just kind of start looking around the site, finding the little alleyways and cul-de-sacs of the links that still work. Most do. But you'll find just really interesting things about the work. It's kind of what some of it means. Just a little bit, and some personal history, and quite some really good analysis of American culture. Which is not shouldn't be surprising, but I don't think that you'd expect that from an exploitation director. And it's kind of like that's just sort of like one aspect of his career. So basically, I guess, to get like kind of long-haired with it, he's sort of a multimedia artist who's had a substantial body of work over the last 30 years, and this is prime for discovery and rediscovery, and a good portion of it plays even better some 30 years later than probably it did at the time. Not that you would ever call McCarthy woke, but in terms of some of the films, like most people expect, like exploitation, you have there's a lot of nudity, you're exploiting women, and there's a lot of nudity in those films, early films, and I guess to me you could call like those first films, like Dan Elvis through Super Starlet AD, kind of like JMM films, the brand, and kind of like the brand, what you would expect. Lots of garage music, lots of sex and violence, very garish looking. and then like worked like Teenage Tupelo, Cigarette Girl, and some of the later shorts. You could almost put those in as graphic novel adaptations, where it's not quite as garish. There's and all of it's controlled, but there's a lot more, I guess, control in those than you would expect. And a lot going on in terms of character development, settings. It's on the surface, I guess you would kind of call him like a almost like hillbilly art, like redneck art house, which
Mhm.
it
That's great.
which it kind of get,
know
which
what
I guess kind of sums it up. It
Yeah.
sounds kind of diminishing, but it's not, and it's
Go
very
with
it's very fitting.
rockabilly surrealism is what I call it.
Okay.
But yeah,
But
Redneck Art House is great too. Yeah.
there's a lot that's under the that's under the surface that's worth digging into.
Which I guess
And
we're going to dig into it a little bit, and we are probably going to stick to mostly Teenage Tupelo since that's coming out, and we'll give you information on how to get it when we get him on, and that will be happening in just a minute. You know what, though, Robert, before we go, there is a question that Giles likes to ask everybody, which is before we go, and we've never done you. So the question is, what is your hometown, and can you recommend a restaurant there?
Well, technically my hometown would be in Cape Girardeau, Missouri, which is just like 2 hours north of Memphis. I haven't been there in 25 years. I currently reside in Topeka, Kansas.
If you want
So
to
if I'm
do it, Topeka.
so not a hometown, but it suffices. To recommend a restaurant here, I would say we have like three Thai restaurants. The best, in my opinion, would be a place called Tup Tum Thai. I think it's the oldest restaurant that's been in Topeka. If you like Thai food, if you love Thai food, I highly recommend that restaurant. It's one of the best ones in the area.
So if you're in Topeka, eat Thai. And we're going to be back, and it won't be any time at all for you. We're going to take a little break and be back with Mike McCarthy. All right. See you soon.
Bye.
Welcome back. This is Greg Smalley on Pod 366, again joined by L. Rob Hubbard below me this time, and by our guest, John Michael McCarthy, JMM, Mike McCarthy, John McCarthy. He goes by Mike, known professionally as either JMM or John Michael McCarthy. This is a reunion for Rob and Mike, since they both worked on Superstar Lit AD together.
Oh,
but we are
Robert,
here today.
Did you get one of these? Did you get one of these rare silkscreen posters?
I did not.
Nobody did, but if you ever come to Memphis, I only have like 2 or 3 left, and you can have one.
I do have like from the so one of the posters that was kind of like the cover art for the for the VHS and DVD.
Yeah, the chroma thing or whatever.
Yeah, and a script. So,
okay, well, those are all rare items. Anyway, you're wanted in the Butt Hut. Just, it's been 25 years. You're late.
Oh my God! Yeah, it's hard to believe. Well,
it's hard to believe you're still talking to me. Honestly, after
why,
Greg? I make hard work. What would you call it, Robert? Hard-earned enemies, or
I don't know. It wasn't enemies. I do recall at the time, because I was sent out to get a lot to pick up a lot of items, and I remember like in a couple of places that I was sent to, and then I was explaining what I wanted, and then they would say, "This is from McCarthy," and there was a certain, and said in a certain tone and a certain look. But oh no, I would say it was hard. It was hard, but you were not. But I will say that was not the worst. That was nowhere near the worst production experience that
Sure.
that I've encountered so far.
Why did you work with Greg? Is that your worst?
He's just been on a million movies. So
Greg's not wearing any shirt or pants, underwear, or anything. He's just like Hugh Hefner. Is the first thing I thought of when I saw that image of. It's like what would Hugh Hefner look like in Cabinet of Caligari? That's kind of what's going on with Greg.
Exactly what I'm going for.
I'm like, damn, how does he get that effect? I'm just, here we go. Change your topic.
This is what we've got to talk about today. So,
Robert, we need to catch up on the phone or something, okay?
Definitely.
Camera.
Superstarlet AD gets re-released, we'll have you back on, and you guys can just talk forever about stories about that. But first off, let's start off by saying, where can people get this movie? How can people get this movie? Because it has been available for many years.
Yeah, Something Weird Video put it out in '95 on VHS, and that was their first new release of any kind of new product. And that, I think the best year that it had, it was number 22 on the top 100 list the year it came out on Something Weird. And then there was this big vacuum where I was racing to try to do other things, make other things, Sore Loser, Superstarlet AD. And Teenage Tupelo kind of got lost in the whole DVD market, I suppose. And but around 2005, was it 18 years ago, I started trying to think about it. Well, at the time, a 10-year anniversary.
Mm-hmm.
But as Robert can attest, the way Gorilla Monster works is it's I kind of thought I would be rewarded for being different or eccentric, or, you know, having something personal to say, or coming out of Fantagraphics books or comics or rock and roll, punk rock, Memphis scene. But that was not the case. As far as obscurity and esoteric stuff go, I'm still right there at the top of the heap. And so it's taken a while to get this current version out. And basically it means finding a patron, Dennis Black, who runs Black and White Records. And 18 years later, after beginning to planning, we have the Blu-ray out now that you can get. I guess if I put a link on, Greg, if I put a link on something affiliated with this podcast, people could buy it directly from me.
Sure. Just afterwards, tell us what you want us to link, and we'll link it afterwards.
Yeah, that's fine. I have a page. It doesn't literally have Teen Tube posted on it. It's still got Sore Losers and Cigarette Girl, but you can just hit click here and buy the movie for I guess $40. It's a 50 gigabyte dual layer Blu-ray that's got about 75 menu clicks on it. It's got a bunch of stuff on it.
Oh wow!
I remember at the time, 2008, because I think you, like on 2009, you did a showing at Underground Film Festival in Memphis at the time, and there were plans for a DVD release. And I think some of those links are still up on the Gorilla Monster site. You dig. Lots of information.
That is so old. That site needs so many updates. My brother Ronnie built a site for me, and I kind of just use it as an excuse to keep my YouTube channel up.
And I remember wondering, because I think at the time there were some sample files posted then, and even that, even the work done at that time looked pretty good. But I expect that for this, since it has been like over 10 years that they, with the new technology, they were kind of managed to go back in and do a whole new restoration. I guess started from scratch, and like cleaned everything up, recolor timed it, things like that. I think
Gave
you
the
said
actors a bath. Did you guys see the new movie that link I sent?
yes.
We got to see some of the footage. Didn't see the Blu-ray, but saw the preview footage, and it looks great. But I will say, to be honest, I don't mind watching it on VHS. It seems appropriate because in my mind, I first caught it when it came out on VHS, and it is associated with Something Weird video. And like when I saw it, I mean, my first thought was like I was watching somebody who had watched the entire Something Weird catalog and compressed it down and put it into a single movie, because it goes from, you know, there's rockabilly in it, there's juvenile delinquents, there are girl gangs, there's sexploitation, there's a bit of horror.
Scopatones.
Yeah, scopatones. Yeah, I mean and when you did this, it's like, I would say it's like the first postmodern grindhouse movie, because you did this before Quentin Tarantino came out with the grindhouse revival stuff, and it's put through all this stuff from 50s and 60s pop culture, is just put through the wood chipper and comes out with your own sensibility to it. It's quite a surreal experience. It blew my mind at the time. I think
Well, we could probably talk about this for longer than 40 minutes, but are you guys familiar now with the film criticism that's toward metamodernism in film?
Not really.
And I'm beginning to wonder if the exploitation stuff that I was doing, maybe others were doing at the time, was a doorway into metamodern, where you're allowing modern film from like post-war America, you know, which is just classic, you know, hero villain stuff, which basically, I guess, Star Wars was sort of a re-examination of that. You're allowing metamodern to sort of, you talk about the wood chipper, you're taking that to postmodernism. Like you're taking Easy Rider and you're actually letting them live at the end, you know, because they're American, the new American construct or something. But yeah, no, you're right. I was completely amazed and blown away by Something Weird video and Mike Franey and Lisa Petrucci, because I thought I'd kind of, you know, you hit that point in your, I don't know, late 20s where you're like, okay, I've listened to all this cool music, I've read these comic books, I've seen a bunch of movies, but at that time, you know, VHS and that kind of stuff was making it you were allowed to see exploitation films, especially thanks to Something Weird. And every time I drew I did watercolor covers for Mike Franey at Something Weird, and every time I created a cover for usually some of his trailer series, he would pay me in 10 movies. And my friends would come over and we would have TV parties, you know, like crazy, just watching this stuff. And when you realize, it's almost like, you know, you can't master the guitar until you hear the Ramones, and then you realize, okay, I could do that. It's kind of like you can't really make a movie until you see someone else do it in a way that, you know, you can assimilate it.
I got you. Like Herschel Gordon Lewis or somebody. You say, I can do that.
Right. Well, but then it's like, but not repeat what they did. But to me, the key of this whole thing, so far, like, it's been 20 years with the Sore Losers and the cycle of Robert Superstarlet AD, you know, and everything. There seems to be an interest in my work where this Shaputa Records is putting out the vinyl soundtrack to Superstarlet AD. It never happened 20 years ago, but they put out Sore Losers, they put out Teenage Tupelo. Doing something original within the exploitation framework, postmodern, metamodern, whatever you want to call it, that has at least some value, God, at least to Europeans or somebody, where someone will put up the money to put the stuff out again so that, several thousand people over the planet can enjoy completely unfettered punk rock movie making. I don't know
Well,
if it answers your question. I go off on a, cloud tangent, whatever.
that's fine. I can say, looking at it now, I found the tape at some point mid 2000s, and just looking at it now and having seen like some of your other work, I just also got the Damn Elvis disc couple weeks ago.
Oh, okay.
And now, like some 30 years later, it's kind of like more, it seems like now your work is in a position to be appreciated now more than at the time that you made it. Because with when your name comes up, probably what most people would think of is Sore Losers or Super Starlet. Teenage Tupelo, I can't. It's almost not quite like the work that they would expect from you if they've seen those earlier films. This is kind of more like the low budget melodramas of like late 50s, early 60s, and I think that was the look that you were going for, and in the midst of this is like this like melodrama and pop culture and personal history, and that's always been like major threads of all your work.
Well, yeah, I get compared to, I called myself the gay Russ Meyer or the straight John Waters, because apparently those are the only two people that any reviewers could really bring up. Like, anything more obscure than that, and nobody would know who they're talking about, I guess. But you guys have seen, huh?
I'm sorry. You mentioned on the Damn Elvis commentary that some reviewer, I guess, referred to you as a pawn shop Kubrick.
Pawn shop Kubrick, I'll take that. Yeah,
Which was, I can see that. That's acceptable for Damn Elvis. That's
sure.
Not praise at all. So,
no, I was just saying that I watched. I really, I don't know what word to use. Loved or influenced, or Russ Meyer's black and white movies like Lorna, where you've got. You mentioned soap operas, but you've got a naked girl story. It's like she's going through romance problems and issues with her boyfriend, and but she's kind of also topless for half of it. And I thought, well, there's a way to get a guy to watch a soap opera, But in my particular case, making Teenage Tupelo semi-autobiographical, coming off of the semi-auto comic book trends that were happening in the late 80s, early 90s, and all that, I thought, well, I'd kind of like to be the graphic novelist or the cartoonist that actually springboards from graphic novels and starts doing movies. And so there's a lot of Love and Rockets comic books meets Russ Meyer's Lorna meets Who the Hell Is My Father, in that. And that's why I think Teenage Tupelo will probably be the most long-lasting. If anyone cares to look at this stuff or find any worth in it at all, it'll probably stand the test of time, because the other movies really are more like almost like film class romps, the tropes of exploitation films, and Teenage Tupelo has that too, as Greg was saying, but it's more of a personal story, and Fantagraphics is putting this book out, so it's kind of cool to be full circle 30 years later, coming back to Fantagraphics after leaving them to do this coffee table book, which will be like 340 pages of beautiful photographs of Daliland and the Man-Haters and the Memphis punk and film scene circa, mid 90s.
Now that
there's the cover.
It's also been in the works. I think it was scheduled. I think it was originally scheduled to come out originally like in 2008. This is just, I guess, just focuses on teenage Tupelo alone, correct? Or
The book?
Things at that time, yeah.
Yes, but Teenage Tupelo lays the seed for Super Starlet because
Right.
Trash's Trailers,
Trash's
the movie
Trailers.
inside the movie is the post-apocalyptic prototype for Super Starlet AD, and what I was riffing on in Super Starlet, and Delana was supposed to have been in Super Starlet AD, and at the end of Sore Losers, the world ends. I don't want to give too much away, but
spoiler kids.
So in a way, Teen Tube, Sore Losers, and Super Starlet are related in that way. And then when we would show the movies on the road, we would film girls who wanted to be in new Stag Loops, and those became Super 8 features, filler like Shine On and Broad Daylight.
Mm-hmm.
That was the 90s, thing.
It's your own universe, like the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's the JMM
right
universe.
Actually,
yeah.
I caught when I saw Super Starlet AD, I caught that it was based on the movie with the Trash's Trailerist. There is a lot to Teenage Tupelo that I missed the first time around that I only figured out later. I'm not even sure how I figured it out, but I think it was I saw there was a tagline for Teenage Tupelo that came up on IMDb that I hadn't seen before. And the tagline was, do you want to see dirty pictures of my mother?
Naked pictures
of my mother. Yeah. And up until that point, I didn't realize that Teenage Tupelo was supposed to be sort of an autobiography, a fantasy autobiography, I guess.
Well, Greg, you really know that you're living life to the fullest when you can, if you were going to make a movie about your life and the byline was basically something some jerk told you in high school, like, hey, you want to see some naked pictures of your mother? And I'm like, no, motherfucker, I'm going to make a movie about it. I'll make my own pictures. Thank you very much. If I only knew who she was. So, yeah.
And also, with Damn Elvis, daughter of Elvis, I finally got to see that thanks to Saturn's Core, which just released it.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
No,
it was a lot of
I
fun.
know.
But
yeah,
Teenage Tupelo was a huge step forward, I thought.
It holds up
on film,
Yeah. Damn Stills holds up better than you think, and then Teenage Tupelo, where you jump from video to Super 8, and actually that sort of, when I first heard about it, that kind of blew my mind. That there was this feature film that you shot on Super 8 film, that you could do that and make it look as good, just as good as, say, like any thing shot on 16 at the time.
Well, it's called meeting somebody. Man, you guys have had happy accidents in your life and all that. And Kristen Hobbs, who plays Frankie in the movie, one of the Man-Haters, she's on the far left of the car there.
Mm-hmm.
She was the manager at Sun Studio for a while. And but before that, she worked at Cat's Music, Cat's CDs and compact disc cassettes, all that. And she worked with a guy named Darren Ipema. And so at the Antenna Club one night, she introduces me to Darren. And Darren is, of course, a graduate of University of Memphis State at the time. And he had this worthless film degree. I say worthless because I think a lot of kids go to film school wanting to be, George Lucas, and they wind up coming out of it being a grip or a best boy or something, because you have to make a living. And if that's what you want to do, that's what you do. And so she hooked me up with Darren and my ex-wife now, Kim, Dawn Ashcraft, who's on the far right of the car. And Darren moved in with us, pitched in on the money to help make the film, shot the film from a very keen eye of being a very technical cinematographer, and then later shot the Sore Losers as well. Mm-hmm. I could not have it. I guess this myth that comes down from Russ Meyer or John Waters that, okay, you wrote it, you directed it, you produced it, now you've got to film it yourself. I just couldn't do that. I didn't want to do it, and it would have led to the movies looking horrible. Even though it's cool that they're shot on film, they would have looked bad if I had done it. So I was working with a really great guy there, in Darren.
Mhm.
Cool.
No, he was he was like an invaluable collaborator, and
Yeah,
part of the, and in terms of part of your work throughout, you had collaborators, Stephen Wheat, Buckley,
yeah.
through the years, several other people who I don't think I've met, or just met briefly when I was the time when I
Well,
was
you
down there,
remember,
but they were
Emmy,
friends.
Emmy
I remember,
Collins.
yeah.
I mean, all you guys were great, and I envision the scenario that when I die, or maybe it's how I die, you guys all get together and shoot me. Not film me, but actually shoot me, because I said I would take a bullet for any of you guys, and then you literally take it seriously, and then you kill me at the end of my life. But give me another 10 years at least.
Now,
Well, here's a question. Here's a question for you, having seen like your work, because there's a period of work. Super Starlet was last feature for a while. Troma put out,
Yeah.
and through the 2000s, so you're busy. I mean, you're raising a family because you
Right.
had Hannah. You're doing music. You're doing music videos. You're doing shorts, and your style is evolving. Because I believe the next main short was Elvis Meets the Beatles,
That was on the
which
heels of Super Starlet.
which was great in
Yeah.
terms of the subject and the handling, and no nudity, which you started to get known for.
Well, behind the camera.
no,
But then you start doing music again, fingers like Saturn, and various projects with other collaborators. As how was it work? You still had like people like Emmy and Wheat involved when they could be, but how is it in terms of like working with different collaborators through that? I guess say like through your last 10 years or so of work.
Well, I've been so lucky to work with a core group of people that understand what I'm trying to do. Like Wheat, for instance.
Mhm.
Wheat, who edited a lot of the bonus features on the Teen Toop Blu-ray. Usually when he would edit something, I would just shake my head and go, yeah, that's perfect, because there's a symbiotic kind of thing that begins to happen after 25 years or so. And there's stuff on there by Emmy too, but I don't really know how to answer your question other than to say, Emmy said I was the most optimistic cynic, or cynical optimist he'd ever met, because raising Hannah was born in 99. My son John was born in 2004. Of course, just when you thought pop culture was on such a narrow, downward, dark slope, because basically the corporatization of everything, kids don't know how to have fun, adults don't know how to have fun anymore. I mean, their idea of fun is usually wrapped around something that costs a lot of money, and crass consumerism and things like that. It's like going into this century, trying to figure out how to get money out of people to make a movie, which obviously will probably not make their money back. You start looking for patrons instead of investors. It's really not a matter of the crew or the friends that I was working with changing. It was the kind of patron that I began to look for, who was, different. Like in the case of Dennis Black, is like showing him a body of work that's 2 decades old and saying, hey, thanks for putting out the Fingers Like Saturn record. Have you ever thought about putting out, could I talk you into putting out Teenage Tupelo? And getting that sort of trust that that we have to have. And I've written some new screenplays, and I'm content having them set on a shelf until my son or my grandson, or maybe some nearsighted geek who lives in Ohio who discovers me online, can just hit a couple of keys with AI and create my movie in the future without any bullshit of like finding money or people crew like you to harass or anyone like that. You know what I'm saying? It's going to come to the point where even underground artists can use AI to make their own animatronic, I think, films. And then all this griping and complaining about how you can't get your angst out because you just can't get the money or the people to take off their clothes or be the, all that's over with because you'll have a way to have it figured out. So I think I've wasted a colossal amount of time by not getting ideas out of my head because I couldn't find people with money to help me. And Robert, I'm not going to, I think the expectation was for me to just keep on making low budget movies as my intellect and my craft became better towards making. Just because it's low budget doesn't mean it has to be shitty,
Right.
But it kind of has to be shitty if you want to make, if you go from being the pawn shop Kubrick to actually being Kubrick. At what point does someone go, oh, okay, Mike, we away with the gatekeepers, let this guy in, let him on the yacht, let him make a movie. I like to think I could have been that guy. Maybe I still can, but we look up to David Lynch, we look up to Linklater, we look up to this last wave of 90s filmmakers who apparently got invited onto the yacht. And it would nice to still do that while I, before my hand starts to shake or, I lose control of my kidneys or something like that. It'd be nice to make another, I've gotten a couple of screenplays written. It'd be nice to make them. But it seems like almost like the happy accident when somebody comes around and goes, hey, here's $50,000, or whatever the amount might be.
Absolutely. Look, you need people have different skill sets, right? So you're a creative type who can make something, but you need somebody who can market in your corner to be able to get something done. That's just the harsh reality of everything. But you know what? I wanted to bring back to a different question because the idea of Elvis runs through at least the early movies and into the late movies. And there's something on the poster here to Teenage Tupelo that's a bit mysterious. I thought you might discuss what was in your mind there. That's the tagline at the top that says, "What if the twin had lived?" And
well, Greg, I'm glad you asked. And if I have a heart attack and fall over, Robert can take it from here, right, Robert?
Okay.
The Fantagraphics Underground book that's coming out, I guess in August or September, will do an incredible deep dive. It's going to be such a deep dive into the Elvis metaphorical, symbolic odyssey of how Elvis is plugged into all my movies. It's so deep dive, you may get the cramps, so don't eat before you read the book. But
so the true gospel, so the whole gospelvis will be
the gospelvis was in there. Well, there's references back to Damselvis, Daughter of Elvis. Of course, Elvis meets the Beatles. But what if the twin had lived refers to Jesse Garon Presley, the Elvis's twin who was born first and was born dead, and then Elvis was born a few minutes later, and then the gospelvis that Robert mentions is the cosmology, the religion that's based on the boyhood of Elvis in Tupelo and his flight from Tupelo, a la Moses' flight from Egypt, a la, the boyhood of mythical Jesus, that kind of thing. In other words, it's not that I believe in any of this. It's just that I don't not believe in it because it's based on archetypal Carl Jungian energy that you can't deny. It's all theoretical and seems to have been proven over a couple thousand years. So I'm just having fun with the way that there are other meta reasons Elvis is popular other than having been the greatest entertainer of the 20th century. To
a large extent. I think in the commentary to Dam's Elvis, you got into this idea, which I kind of see, is that the Elvis is like the new God. He's replaced Christianity. He's a symbol of pop culture as the new common uniting religion of at least the American people. Is that
Yeah, well, everything that America has, they borrowed from Europe and the Middle East and so forth and so on, and that really includes religion. We're backed up by Jewish tradition, and then lately I've gotten into this. There was a documentary called Caesar's Messiah that you can look at in completion on I don't know who put it out. It's on YouTube anyway for free.
Okay.
It's about how the Roman emperors, the Vespasian line, Titus and Vespasian and Domitian, those particular father and two sons, created Christianity as the first wave of anti-Semitism against the Jews. And then, of course, 300 years later, it does away with all Roman construct of everything that they set out to conquer. Apparently, the Jews were hard to beat for 100 years. So the Romans said, to hell with this, let's just bring their Messiah forward. And, when we conquer other places, they'll believe in Jesus, because anybody can be a Christian, but you can only be a Jew if you're born of a Jew. So all that stuff fascinates me, because to me, it's all bullshit, but it has influenced 2,000 years of sitting here in a chair or driving down the road, as Romans would have us do things, and will ultimately be our demise. So I think, as in the Damsel, this Daughter of Elvis, in one of the interviews or the director's commentary that Mike Hunchback conducted, I say that I don't believe in Jesus, but I believe in Elvis, and Elvis believed in Jesus. And that's good enough for me. I mean, let's get deep here, folks. And this is all bullshit. Let's move on. Let's build a spaceship. Let's get the fuck out of here. Robert, I'm counting on you to do it.
Okay, I'm trying. To get back to another aspect of teenage Tupelo, it kind of makes I guess in this release, it kind of you kind of come full circle, because another part of what you've been involved in has been sort of this cultural activism around Memphis, the destruction of certain.
Well, yeah, you don't. Yeah, we have 2.5 minutes left. I think Greg is telling us.
Okay.
And you bring up this. Great. You don't go through Nazareth knocking down Jesus's shit, right? So you don't go through Memphis knocking down Elvis's stuff. That's all I've tried to protect. That's all I'm trying to say. And that goes for blues artists, country artists, rockabilly, gospel, soul. You don't knock down people, the greatest entertainers, the greatest city that created rock and roll. You don't change our landscape. That's why people want to come here for the next 1,000 years. That's all I've tried to do. And good Lord, used a sizable amount of time to do it. And if you watch my films, Teenage Tupelo, Damsel, this Sore Loser, Super Starlet, as you know, you see the wasteland that we would go in to shoot, where people were knocking down the American century, as it was reflected in Memphis, Tennessee.
Okay.
Great. Now, we always ask, and I can tie this in. We always ask people what their hometown is. I think Memphis seems like your hometown. And
well, I was conceived in Tupelo, but where were you conceived, Greg?
Here in Louisville.
So okay, so you're still living in. Okay, all right.
My dad will always tell me the building I was conceived in. When we drive past it, he'll point it out. So,
ouch.
But what we like to ask for a restaurant recommendation. Is there something Elvis themed maybe that's out there?
Well, I've been going to Pete and Sam's a lot lately and having the sangria. It's really good. You can't go wrong with the barbecue shop on Madison, wet ribs. I'm trying to think. I've just written a screenplay about Alex Chilton producing The Cramps in the late 70s, and I got lots of restaurant references in that. Some of them don't exist anymore, though.
I think that's good enough, because we're about to run out of time. So there was so much to talk about. Maybe we'll have you on later. Put another movie out so we can have you on again and finish this discussion.
You don't happen to have $350,000, do you, Greg?
Maybe later.
That laughter tells me yes. The laughter says yes.
All right. Maybe in a few years. We're signing off now. Bye-bye.